Welcome to the world of science fiction stories, and don't forget to like, share and subscribe my channel. Enjoy the listening. The galaxy mocked a quiet Earth. Until our Firestorm Reply arrived. The galaxy's greatest miscalculation for centuries, humanity had lived quietly on Earth, watching the stars and dreaming of one day reaching them. But the galaxy never noticed. They were too busy fighting their own wars, expanding their empires, and making plans for their futures. Earth was just a small, insignificant planet, too primitive to be taken seriously. To the vast galactic powers, humanity was nothing more than a curiosity, a fleeting species that could never make a mark on the grand scale of the universe. The Galactic Council, a body formed to keep peace and order in the galaxy, had long dismissed humanity as irrelevant. They laughed at the notion that Earth could ever rise above its humble beginnings. Earth's people didn't have the advanced technology of the alien species in the galaxy, nor did they have the power to threaten anyone. They were just a small blue world hidden away in the corner of the galaxy. The Council's members, made up of the most powerful and advanced species in the galaxy, did not see humanity as a threat. They ignored the warnings that came from a handful of forward-thinking diplomats and strategists, people who had been watching Earth for years and understood something the Council did not: humanity was different. Humanity was unpredictable, resourceful, and resilient beyond measure. But those warnings went unheard. The powerful members of the Galactic Council brushed aside the concerns and focused on their own political games. They believed humanity would remain in their place forever, stuck in their own little world, never a part of the galaxy's greater events. The galaxy's powers were focused on controlling the stars, consolidating their power, and eliminating threats. The Human Alliance had made no major alliances with any of the galactic factions. They were too new, too unknown. But, unbeknownst to the Council, humanity had been making its own plans quietly and in secret. They were preparing for something the galaxy was not ready for. It all began when the first warning came from a ship sent to explore the dark corners of space. The vessel, a small human reconnaissance ship, came back with reports of a strange energy signature coming from the edge of the galaxy. The Council ignored it. They dismissed it as a glitch in the ship's systems or an anomaly that would pass with time. After all, humanity was still figuring out how to travel through the stars. Surely, they weren't capable of anything dangerous. But the truth was, humanity had been working on something that would change the galaxy forever. The technology they had developed in secret was far beyond anything the galaxy had ever seen. They had begun to build ships, massive, powerful ships that could rival any fleet in the galaxy. These ships weren't just designed to explore space, they were built to protect Earth, to fight back if the galaxy ever turned its attention toward them. The real turning point came when a new, threatening force began to move across the galaxy, a powerful, mysterious alien race that seemed to be conquering everything in its path. This alien force had no mercy. They swept through planets, obliterating civilizations with their advanced weapons, taking over world after world. The galaxy's factions were scrambling to defend themselves, forming temporary alliances and trying to understand this new threat, but they were too slow, too scattered. The Council could not come to a decision on how to fight back. They couldn't agree on a strategy, and the situation worsened. Earth, sitting at the edge of this chaos, became a target. The alien force saw Earth as an easy conquest. They didn't know what the humans were capable of, and so they sent their fleets, confident that it would be an easy victory. They expected Earth's defenses to be weak and unprepared. But what the alien force didn't know was that humanity had been preparing for this very moment. The human ships, previously hidden, began to rise from the depths of the solar system. Massive, sleek vessels, powerful enough to make the galaxy's greatest fleets tremble, emerged into the void of space. They were like nothing anyone had ever seen, sleek, advanced, and heavily armed. They didn't just represent Earth's technological progress, they represented humanity's will to survive. The alien forces, upon seeing humanity's fleet for the first time, were caught off guard. Their commanders had never expected humanity to have such advanced technology, let alone a fleet that could rival their own. The galaxy's greatest powers, who had laughed at humanity's insignificance, were now learning the truth. The human ships were designed not just for defense, but for conquest. The first battle took place just outside Earth's orbit. Humanity's ships clashed with the alien fleet in a battle that shook the very fabric of space. The humans fought fiercely, using their advanced technology and strategies to outmaneuver the alien ships. The galaxy watched in awe as humanity, once considered weak and helpless, held its ground against a seemingly unstoppable force. The Galactic Council, who had once laughed at the very idea of humanity posing any kind of threat, were now facing a grim reality. The humans were not the small, helpless species they had thought, they were warriors ready to fight for their survival, and they had the technology to back it up. The Council had underestimated them. The mistake they had made was not just ignoring the warnings, but underestimating the power of humanity's resolve. And now, they would have to face the consequences of that arrogance. The first sign of a massive shift in the galaxy's power had begun, and humanity was at the center of it. The Council had no idea how far humanity had come or how much they had hidden away. The battle was just beginning, and the galaxy would soon learn that humanity was no longer something to be ignored. The tension in the galaxy grew with every passing day, as the alien forces, confident in their superiority, continued to push forward. Their fleets, vast and seemingly unstoppable, swept from one star system to the next, conquering worlds and leaving nothing in their wake but destruction. They had taken over planet after planet, erasing entire civilizations in their path. Their technology was advanced, their tactics flawless, and their ruthlessness unmatched. The galactic powers were scrambling, forming temporary alliances and trying to come up with a strategy that would counter this new, terrifying threat. In the midst of this chaos, humanity's leaders, once dismissed as insignificant, began to make decisions that would change everything. Earth, on the outer edge of the galaxy, had always been a planet of survivalists. Humans had learned to adapt and overcome countless challenges throughout their history. They had fought wars, faced natural disasters, and survived when others would have perished. Now, humanity was faced with a new challenge, a threat so large, so powerful, that it seemed almost impossible to overcome. But Earth's people did what they always did best, they refused to back down. The world leaders came together in a secret meeting, hidden from the prying eyes of the Galactic Council and the alien forces. They knew that their small planet, Earth, would be next. The Council had failed to prepare, and humanity had been ignored for far too long. They understood the gravity of the situation, but they also understood something crucial: they couldn't wait for help, no one was coming to save them. If they were going to survive, they would have to save themselves. Behind closed doors, humanity's top engineers, scientists, and military strategists worked tirelessly to bring their secret plans to life. They had been preparing for this moment for years, quietly building a fleet in the depths of Earth's orbit, ships so powerful, so advanced, that they could stand toe-to-toe with the galaxy's greatest powers. The ships were designed not only to defend Earth, but to fight back against anyone who threatened humanity's existence. These weren't just military vessels, they were symbols of humanity's resolve, a statement to the galaxy that they would not be underestimated anymore. The human fleet was unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. The ships were massive, sleek, and heavily armed, built using technology that far surpassed anything the galaxy's civilizations could even dream of. Their weapon systems were state-of-the-art, capable of disabling even the most powerful alien ships in mere moments. They had perfected the art of space travel, developing warp drives that could outpace the most advanced fleets, allowing them to appear out of nowhere, taking their enemies by surprise. Humanity had been quiet for so long, working in the shadows, but now it was time to reveal their hand. At first, the alien forces had no idea what they were facing. They had grown used to taking planets without resistance, sweeping through systems with ease. They thought humanity would be no different, just another world, ripe for the taking. But when their fleet entered the solar system, expecting to find a defenseless Earth, they were met with a surprise they would never forget. The first ship appeared without warning, materializing out of the darkness of space, its weapons charged and ready. Then, more ships followed, emerging one after another, forming a wall of steel and firepower that filled the space around Earth. The alien commanders were caught off guard. They had underestimated humanity's strength, just as the Galactic Council had. The humans had built their fleet in secrecy, and the galaxy had no idea what was coming. The alien forces tried to regroup, but it was already too late. Humanity's ships moved swiftly, their weapons lighting up the darkness of space as they engaged the alien forces in a series of brutal battles. The galaxy's greatest military leaders had never seen anything like it. They had underestimated humanity's technological advances, but more than that, they had underestimated humanity's spirit. The humans fought with a ferocity and determination that sent shock waves through the galaxy. The first battle was fierce. The alien ships, despite their superior numbers, struggled to keep up with the speed and agility of the human vessels. Humanity's tactics were unconventional, using hit-and-run strategies that left the aliens scrambling to catch up. Every alien ship that was destroyed sent a message to the galaxy: humanity was not to be ignored. They were no longer the insignificant species that the Galactic Council had once dismissed. They were a force to be reckoned with, and the galaxy would soon learn that there was nothing small or weak about humanity. News of the battle spread across the galaxy like wildfire. The alien forces had lost a significant portion of their fleet in just the first engagement, and their commanders were left in shock. The Galactic Council, which had once scoffed at the idea of humanity becoming a threat, was forced to take notice. The Council's leaders were now faced with a terrifying reality: humanity had become a power in the galaxy, and they were not going to back down. The decision to ignore Earth's warnings had been a grave mistake, and the consequences were becoming painfully clear. As the human fleet continued to strike back, the galaxy's greatest powers began to shift. The Galactic Council, once the dominant force in the galaxy, found itself on the defensive. Their once unimaginable power was now being challenged by the very species they had dismissed as weak and insignificant. The galaxy's established order was crumbling, and no one knew what the final outcome would be. But one thing was clear: humanity had finally made its mark on the galaxy, and they weren't going anywhere. The human ships continued to outmaneuver and overpower the alien fleets, and with every victory, their reputation grew. The galaxy watched in awe as the once dismissed species of Earth proved their might, showing that when pushed to the brink, humanity was capable of unimaginable feats. The Galactic Council could no longer ignore the truth. They had made a grave error by underestimating humanity, and now they would have to face the consequences. Each ship in the fleet was a masterpiece of human engineering. Some were designed for sheer firepower, armed with devastating weapons capable of annihilating entire fleets in seconds. Others were crafted for speed and precision, equipped with advanced stealth technology that would allow them to strike swiftly and disappear before their enemies could react. The fleet was not only powerful, it was also incredibly versatile, able to adapt to any situation that arose. For months, these ships had been hidden in the deep, dark regions of space, out of sight from the prying eyes of the Galactic Council and the alien forces that roamed the stars. Earth's leaders knew that the element of surprise would be their greatest advantage. If the enemy ever found out what humanity had been building, it would be too late. The galaxy thought humanity was too weak, too small, to pose any real threat. They had no idea that the humans had been quietly preparing for a day like this. Humanity's new fleet was ready, and so were the brave souls who would pilot them. Volunteers from all walks of life, from every corner of the planet, had stepped forward to join the ranks of humanity's defenders. Some were veterans of Earth's military, hardened by years of combat. Others were engineers, scientists, and civilians who had been trained in the art of warfare. They all had one thing in common: they believed in Earth, in humanity, and in the need to protect it from the growing storm in the galaxy. As the ships powered up and began to form the core of their battle groups, humanity's leaders made the call: the fleet would emerge from the shadows. The galaxy had written them off, and now it was time to show the universe what humanity was capable of. With their advanced technology, they could teleport their ships at unimaginable speeds, taking them from one star system to another in the blink of an eye. The galaxy would be caught completely off guard. The first phase of their plan was simple, yet terrifyingly effective. The fleet would strike at key locations, spaceports, military bases, and supply depots, crippling the enemy's ability to fight back. Each strike would be swift and precise, with no warning given to the enemy. They would hit hard, and they would hit fast, disappearing before the enemy even had a chance to react. By the time the alien forces realized what was happening, it would be too late. The galaxy would be in chaos, and humanity would be at the center of it all. But humanity wasn't just fighting for survival, they were fighting for their place in the galaxy. The alien forces had mocked them for centuries, dismissing them as insignificant, primitive beings with no place among the stars. Now, humanity was about to prove them all wrong. They had been underestimated, but that was about to change. The universe was about to learn that there was nothing more dangerous than a species backed into a corner with nothing left to lose. The first teleportation jump was executed flawlessly. One moment, the fleet was hidden in the dark reaches of space, and the next, they materialized over a key alien installation in a nearby star system. The ships appeared out of nowhere, their massive forms looming in the distance like specters of death. The alien forces stationed there were unprepared, scattered, and unable to mount any meaningful defense. They had no time to react before the first wave of humanity's weapons struck. Explosions rocked the alien facility as human ships unleashed their full firepower. Plasma cannons, missile barrages, and advanced energy weapons tore through the enemy's defenses, reducing them to nothing in a matter of minutes. The alien soldiers stationed there scrambled in panic, but it was too late. Humanity's ships moved in perfect coordination, working like a well-oiled machine, attacking with precision and overwhelming strength. As the alien forces fought to regroup, the fleet teleported again, this time to another strategic target. The attacks came so quickly and without warning that the enemy was unable to mount any significant resistance. Each time the humans struck, they vanished again before the aliens could retaliate. They were like ghosts, striking fear into the hearts of the galaxy's conquerors, who had once believed humanity was too weak to fight back. News of the attack spread quickly through the galaxy. The Galactic Council, once dismissive of humanity, was now in full panic mode. Their intelligence reports were filled with confusion and disbelief. The ships that were supposed to be nowhere had appeared out of nowhere, and the very species they had ignored for so long was now causing destruction at an unprecedented scale. The Council quickly realized they had made a grave mistake by underestimating a species that had just revealed its true power. The galaxy watched in awe and terror as humanity's fleet continued its rampage. Every strike was more calculated, more precise than the last, leaving entire planets reeling from the damage. The alien forces, disorganized and panicked, struggled to defend their territories. The once feared invaders were now fighting to survive, unable to comprehend the new threat that had emerged. And as the attacks continued, one thing became clear: humanity had not only answered the call, it had brought the fight to the galaxy. The universe would never be the same again. As the human fleet silently emerged from the shadows of their hidden bases, the galaxy continued its relentless march toward war. The alien forces had swept through many star systems, leaving scorched planets and broken civilizations in their wake. The Galactic Council, unable to respond effectively, had turned a blind eye to Earth's desperate attempts for aid. But now, as the first of humanity's ships materialized from hyperspace, the balance of power was about to shift. The enormous ships cut through the darkness of space with eerie precision, their engines glowing like stars as they moved forward in perfect formation. Each vessel was a masterpiece of technology: battleships, carriers, and cruisers, all designed for one purpose: to ensure humanity's survival. Every ship had been carefully constructed using Earth's most advanced resources and the knowledge gained from centuries of warfare and innovation. No other force in the galaxy could match their sheer firepower, speed, and adaptability. The first alien fleet to encounter them was a group of ships from the Trisar race, notorious for their brutality and efficiency in battle. They had decimated entire worlds in their quest for domination. However, when they came across the human fleet, they were met with something they did not expect: resistance. Humanity fought back not just with strength, but with ingenuity. Their ships adapted mid-battle, using tactics and strategies that confused and bewildered the Trisar forces. As the battle raged on, it became clear to the alien fleets that Earth's ships were no mere target, they were a force to be reckoned with. The Trisar, who had never expected a fight like this, found themselves outmaneuvered at every turn. The human ships were fast and agile, dodging incoming fire while launching devastating counterattacks. The humans had mastered not only the technology needed to build such incredible ships, but also the strategic thinking necessary to turn the tide of battle in their favor. But this was just the beginning. The alien fleets, confident in their overwhelming superiority, thought this would be a quick victory. They underestimated the power of humanity's hidden armada. As the human fleet made its presence known across the galaxy, the aliens began to realize the devastating truth: they had made the mistake of underestimating the very people they had dismissed for so long. The galactic powers, who had watched Earth's struggles with a mixture of indifference and condescension, now saw the result of their apathy. Humanity wasn't just fighting for survival, they were fighting for their place in the galaxy. The Earth's warriors were now leading the charge, showing the universe that they could not only hold their ground but win. The once dismissed human fleet now stood as a symbol of defiance, a reminder that no one should ever underestimate the power of the human spirit. As the battle between humanity and the alien forces continued to unfold, the galaxy held its breath. The world had never seen such an overwhelming and decisive force on the battlefield before. For the first time in a long time, the galaxy was faced with the reality that Earth was no longer the weak and insignificant planet it had once been thought to be. With every battle, the human fleet's power grew, and the aliens were forced to reconsider everything they thought they knew about the galaxy and its inhabitants. The tables had turned, and humanity's warriors had proven that they were not to be underestimated. The galaxy, once so sure of its dominance, was now trembling under the weight of Earth's response. The hidden armada had emerged, and the message was clear: humanity would not fall quietly into the shadows. They had come to reclaim their future, and they would do whatever it took to ensure their place in the galaxy, no matter what the cost. The galaxy's greatest miscalculation had been made, and now there was no going back. The enemy forces, still reeling from their initial successes, had no idea what was coming. The galaxies they had conquered seemed vast and unchallenged, their power seemed absolute. They couldn't fathom the possibility that a small, insignificant planet like Earth could pose any real threat. But as they advanced closer to the next target, the home world of humanity, they began to notice something strange. Communications went dark across a vast swath of the galaxy. Ships that had been patrolling the outer rims of space began reporting strange energy readings, too powerful to be explained by anything they knew. It was almost as if something was waiting for them, lying in wait just out of sight. In the deep reaches of space, far beyond the scope of the Galactic Council's watchful eyes, humanity's hidden fleet began to awaken. For years, these ships had been silently orbiting Earth, their massive forms cloaked by advanced technology. The time had come for them to take their place in the galaxy. And as they powered up, they sent a single, unmistakable message, a signal broadcast across the galaxy. The message was brief, clear, and carried the unmistakable tone of a warning. The Council and their alien allies took little notice at first. They dismissed the signal as nothing more than a desperate plea from a defeated race. After all, what could humanity possibly do to stop them? Their forces were already too powerful, their fleets too numerous. What was once a species that barely mattered now seemed like nothing more than a flicker in the grand cosmic scale. But as the message echoed through the galaxy, a subtle shift began. The first sign of change came in the form of reports from scout ships that had ventured too close to Earth. Those ships had disappeared without a trace, swallowed up by the shadows of space. Then came reports of strange energy fluctuations, of ships showing up and vanishing before anyone could even track them. It was as if an invisible wall had been erected around Earth, and no one knew how to breach it. The enemy forces began to panic. The most confident of them, the ones who had been certain of their victory, now found themselves questioning everything they had assumed about humanity. The Council, once certain that Earth would fall like every other planet, began to feel the first stirrings of doubt. They had underestimated humanity in a way they could never have imagined. The humans had never fought on a grand scale before, not like the rest of the galaxy. But humanity's true power lay in its ingenuity, its resilience, and its ability to adapt under pressure. As the enemy forces tried to rally and figure out what was happening, the human fleet began to make its move. They weren't interested in negotiation or diplomacy, they had no time for that. They had been pushed to the brink, and now they were coming for retribution. The world's greatest scientists and military strategists had worked in secret for years to prepare the ultimate weapons. The ships that emerged from the shadows of Earth were not just about firepower, they were equipped with technology that could destabilize entire star systems. Humanity had created weapons capable of wiping out entire fleets with a single strike. In space, as the ships moved into position, the universe held its breath. The lights of distant stars shone bright, but they would soon be dimmed by the arrival of humanity's wrath. The moment had come for the galaxy to face the consequences of their underestimation. As the human fleet moved closer to the enemy, it became clear that the rules of war were about to be rewritten. The galaxy's greatest mistake was about to be made apparent to all. Humanity, once written off as weak and insignificant, was about to show just how far they were willing to go to defend their world and take vengeance for every slight. And in doing so, they would make sure that no one would ever dare to underestimate them again. As the days passed, the galaxy remained unaware of the preparations taking place on Earth. The alien forces continued their expansion relentlessly, conquering new star systems, and the rest of the galaxy believed that nothing could stand in their way. The Galactic Council, still wrapped in its arrogance and overconfidence, saw the human race as nothing more than an afterthought, a primitive species that could do little more than struggle in the face of overwhelming power. The thought that Earth could ever pose a threat seemed laughable to them. They ignored all warnings, convinced that their forces were invincible and their control over the galaxy unchallenged. The idea of humanity rising up seemed far-fetched, a fantasy too absurd to consider seriously. But what the galaxy didn't know was that the human leaders had been preparing for this moment for years in secrecy. The human fleet had been hidden, silently constructed in the far reaches of space, out of sight and mind of the galactic powers. Humanity had taken their time, carefully crafting each ship with the most advanced technology they could muster, ensuring that each vessel was equipped with weapons capable of rivaling the most powerful fleets in the galaxy. The fleet was not just about strength, it was about precision, strategy, and the relentless drive that had always defined humanity. The world's leaders knew that if they revealed their cards too soon, they would be crushed. But the longer they waited, the greater the risk that the galaxy would fall to the alien invaders. With no other choice, the decision was made, humanity would strike back when the time was right, and they would do so with a force so powerful that the galaxy would never forget it. The day finally came when the fleet was ready. In secret, Earth's military communicated with a small network of trusted allies, notifying them of the impending launch. The entire human fleet, hidden in the outer rings of the solar system, was now prepared to leave Earth's orbit. As the fleet assembled and moved into position, an eerie silence took over the planet. No one on Earth spoke of it, only a select few knew what was coming. The human race had held its breath, waiting for this moment, knowing it would be their only chance to protect their world and their people. With the silent hum of engines and the deep rumbling sound of massive ships moving through space, the fleet took its first steps toward the unknown. They left Earth's atmosphere with the same confidence that had always defined humanity, even in the darkest of times. The human fleet was heading toward the heart of the galaxy, where the alien forces had set up their headquarters. The Galactic Council, still blissfully unaware of the storm approaching, continued to make their strategic moves as if nothing had changed. They believed they were in control, they believed they were invincible. But as the human fleet advanced deeper into the galaxy, the first ripples of doubt began to form. The leaders of the galaxy, still blind to the true threat, began to receive strange reports. Unexplainable phenomena were detected near Earth's orbit, huge shifts in energy patterns, fleets of ships materializing out of nowhere. By the time the Council even began to realize the truth, it was already too late. The human fleet was closing in, and the galaxy's greatest mistake was about to become its worst nightmare. The alien forces were unprepared for the sheer scale of humanity's response. The fleet that had once been ridiculed for its small size and limited technology was now a force to be reckoned with. The ships were fast, incredibly maneuverable, and armed to the teeth with weapons that could obliterate entire fleets in a single strike. The aliens were about to face a challenge unlike anything they had ever encountered before. Humanity wasn't just fighting to survive, they were fighting to show the galaxy that no one, not even the most powerful forces in the universe, could underestimate them again. The consequences of their arrogance were about to become clear. As the human fleet neared its target, the tension in the galaxy was palpable. The leaders of the Galactic Council were beginning to panic, scrambling to make sense of what was happening. But it was already too late. The ships arrived, massive and unyielding, their presence impossible to ignore. Humanity had answered the call, and the galaxy was about to find out what it truly meant to challenge the human spirit. The first battle was about to begin, and the outcome would change the galaxy forever. The time had come. After years of hiding, preparing in secret, and building a fleet that would rival any in the galaxy, humanity was ready. The galaxy had underestimated Earth and its people, assuming they were too small and insignificant to stand against the tide of conquest sweeping across the stars. But Earth's leaders and their people knew better. The fleet, vast and powerful, now moved in unison, a force that would strike fear into any who stood in its way. As the first wave of ships exited the hidden docking stations around Earth, their engines powered up, sending ripples through space that seemed to vibrate the very fabric of the galaxy. The enormous fleet was not just a display of firepower, it was a statement. It was humanity's declaration to the universe that they were no longer passive observers, no longer to be dismissed or disregarded. They had arrived, and they would fight with everything they had. The aliens, who had once mocked Earth's potential, were now silenced by the sheer force of the human fleet. News of the fleet's emergence spread quickly, and soon every corner of the galaxy was talking about humanity's defiance. The Galactic Council, once so sure of their dominance, began to feel the first pangs of doubt. This wasn't just a rebellion of a few scattered ships or an isolated resistance. This was an entire civilization united in their defense of their home and willing to fight to the last. For the first time, the Council's arrogance faltered. They had thought they could crush humanity like an insect, dismissing them as weak and insignificant. They had believed that no matter how many ships or soldiers they sent, Earth would simply bow to their might. But they had miscalculated. Humanity was far stronger than they realized, far more capable of defending itself than they ever could have imagined. The Council watched helplessly as humanity's fleet made its way through the galaxy, destroying everything in its path. The shock was felt across the universe. Civilizations that had once stood as pillars of strength trembled as humanity's ships advanced toward them. The human fleet, though still relatively small compared to the forces of the galactic powers, was more than enough to bring down those who had underestimated Earth. One by one, the galaxy's strongest systems fell before them. The once mighty forces of the Galactic Council were no match for the fury of humanity's revenge. It became clear that this was not a war that would be won by might alone. It was a war that would be won by willpower, ingenuity, and the unbreakable spirit of humanity. With each victory, humanity's reputation grew. The galaxy began to take notice, and where there had once been mockery, there was now fear. Earth had shown the galaxy that it was not a planet to be ignored or trampled underfoot. Instead, it had proven that humanity was a force to be reckoned with, a civilization that would not bend, no matter the odds. And as Earth's fleet continued its march across the galaxy, the message became clear: when humanity was pushed to the edge, it would rise up and fight with everything it had. And no one, not even the greatest powers of the galaxy, could stand in its way. The Galactic Council, now aware of the true might of humanity, began to panic. They realized too late that they had pushed too far, that their arrogance had led them to make a grave mistake.